Have you ever wondered why some perfectly honest people in Britain end up with frozen bank accounts, panicked phone calls, and letters from agencies they've never even heard of, all because they tried to be careful with their own money? What if I told you that the very instinct you think is protecting you is actually the one thing that puts a target on your back? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes I'm going to show you a hidden trap that's catching decent, law-abiding people across this country. Most of them never see it coming until it's far too late. Before we go any further, do me one small favor. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and share this video with someone you care about. Because what you're about to hear could genuinely save a family member, a friend, or a neighbor from months of stress they never deserved. That one tap costs you nothing, but it might save someone their savings. Now let's get into it. Picture this. You've just sold your old car for cash, or maybe your daughter handed you a thick envelope of notes as a birthday gift. Or perhaps you've spent years running a small business and finally decided to bank the money that's been sitting in your safe at home. It's your money. You earned it. You can prove it. And yet, the moment you walk into that branch and hand it over, something invisible happens behind the counter. Your bank starts watching. Not because they think you're a criminal, not because they've got a grudge, but because the law forces them to. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. It isn't the watching that gets ordinary people into trouble. It's what they do next. That polite British instinct to keep things quiet, to spread the money out, to avoid making a fuss. That very instinct is the fastest way to turn clean, honest money into a locked account and a legal nightmare. Let me clear something up right at the start, because there's a myth floating around that comes straight from American YouTube videos, and it's doing real damage on this side of the Atlantic. A lot of people believe there's a magic figure, usually £10,000, and the second you cross it, a form is automatically sent. That's simply not how it works here. That's an American rule. In the United States, banks are legally required to file a report. We don't have that. There is no button that gets pressed when you deposit more than a specific amount in the UK. So if you've been quietly worrying about a magic number, you can breathe out. That number doesn't exist here. But please don't hear me wrong. The absence of an automatic form does not mean nobody's looking. In fact, our system is arguably more dangerous precisely because it runs on judgment rather than fixed thresholds. And that judgment is exactly what you need to understand. Because once you see how it works, everything else becomes clear. The whole framework sits on top of a law called the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. People in the industry just call it POCA. Under that act, banks, building societies, solicitors, accountants, and pretty much anyone handling money professionally have a legal duty. If they know, suspect, or even have reasonable grounds to suspect that money passing through their hands might come from crime, they have to report it. And they don't report it to the taxman. They send it to the National Crime Agency in the form of a Suspicious Activity Report, a SAR for short. Now here's the key difference from the American approach. There is no minimum figure, none. A SAR can be filed on a deposit of £200 if the behavior surrounding it looks strange. And on the other hand, a perfectly explained deposit of £50,000 might not trigger anything at all. It isn't the amount that raises the flag. It's the story around the money, the context, the pattern, the vibe, if you like. So what exactly does your bank look at? Not a single number sitting on its own, but a shape, a behavior. The software running quietly in the background at every major bank is extraordinarily clever. It's built to hunt for one thing above all else: people who look like they're trying to fly under the radar. And this brings me to a word that has ruined more honest lives. The word is structuring. Some in the industry call it smurfing, which sounds silly, but describes a very serious problem. Structuring means taking a lump of money and deliberately chopping it into smaller pieces so it doesn't attract attention. $3,000 on Monday, $2,500 on Thursday, another lot the following week, maybe at a different branch, maybe through the post office to mix things up. You think you're being clever. You think you're being cautious. The software thinks it's watching a criminal cover their tracks. And the tragedy is this: it cannot tell the two apart. It doesn't know you sold a caravan. It doesn't know your son gave you the money for a new boiler. It sees a shape, and the shape is exactly what it's programmed to hunt. Now, I don't want to leave you sitting there terrified, because the truth is that the enormous majority of SARs go nowhere. Hundreds of thousands of them are filed every single year. Most of them simply sit quietly in a database. Nobody comes to your door. Nobody grabs a penny of your money. You go about your life exactly as normal, and you'll almost certainly never even know a report was raised on you. The SAR is not an accusation. It is not a fine. It is not a tax investigation. Most of the time, it is paperwork that lives and dies in a filing system, but it is the doorway through which the truly serious consequences arrive. And once you see what those consequences look like, you'll understand exactly why I don't want you to ever give the system a reason. Quick pause here. If this is genuinely opening your eyes, do me a favor and drop a comment saying, "Understood." It helps this video reach other people who need to hear this before they make a costly mistake. Now let's keep going. The first consequence most people have never even heard of, and it has quietly become one of the sharpest tools the authorities have. It's called an account freezing order. These came in under the Criminal Finances Act 2017, and their use has exploded. Here's how one works, and brace yourself because it's genuinely unsettling. An enforcement officer, NCA, police, or even HMRC can walk into a magistrate's court and apply to freeze the money sitting in your bank account. Not the Crown Court, not the High Court with a senior judge weighing complex financial arguments, the magistrate's court. The balance only needs to be above £1,000. The threshold they have to prove is only reasonable grounds to suspect that the money might be recoverable. In plain English, this means it might be linked to some kind of unlawful conduct. They don't need to have arrested you. They don't need to have charged you. They don't even need a conviction anywhere in sight. And crucially, it can be without notice. The polite legal phrase for that is without notice, which really just means the first you'll know is when your card is declined, or your direct debit bounces, and the bank on the other end of the phone politely refuses to explain why. And that leads us straight into the second thing that catches ordinary people out. And why won't the bank tell you what's happening? Why the wall of silence? It feels almost surreal until you understand the logic behind it. There's a crime called tipping off. It sits under Section 333A of the Proceeds of Crime Act. If any bank employee tells a customer about a SAR, they've committed a crime. And it's not a small crime. It can carry up to 5 years in prison. 5 years. So the person on the phone is legally gagged. They're not being difficult. They're not being cold. They physically cannot tell you what's happening, even if they want to. And so you end up in this awful, silent limbo, your own money sitting locked while nobody's allowed to say a useful word. Let me tell you about someone I met through a bit of volunteering I've done with a local advice service. I'll call him Reg, because that's not his name. Reg was 72, a widower who ran a market stall. A cash business through and through, but every penny declared, every year's books tidy, everything above board. When he finally decided to close the stall for good, he had a decent sum of cash built up over the last couple of years, sitting safely in a locked box at home because that's the way his generation always did things. He decided to bank it, but his nephew, trying to be helpful, said, "Uncle Reg, whatever you do, don't take it all in at once. You'll trigger something. Break it up. Be sensible." So Reg, bless him, went along with the advice. 4,000 one week, 3,000 the next. A bit through the post office, a bit at the branch. Over about 6 weeks, he emptied that box, thinking he was being cautious. What he was actually doing, in the cold eyes of the software, was a textbook example of structuring. His account was frozen, and because he had spread the deposits across so many small trips, he didn't have one single clean piece of paperwork. He had a shoebox of scribbled notes. It took him nearly 4 months, a solicitor he could barely afford, and immense stress, just to get his own money released. If Reg had walked in on day one with the whole lot and a folder of paperwork, the very thing his nephew warned him against would have been the very thing that kept him safe. So let me flip this on its head now, because I'd never leave you frightened without giving you the way out. And the way out is beautifully simple. It is, in fact, the exact opposite of what most people's instincts tell them. The rule is this: put it all in at once, and let your paperwork do the talking for you. Your paperwork is your armor. It is the single most powerful shield you have in this entire area, and almost nobody bothers with it. Let me walk you through the 5 most common everyday moments where this really comes into play for honest people. The first is when you sell something private and valuable for cash. A car, a caravan, a motorbike, a watch. Say you sell your car for £9,000 and the buyer pays you in notes. Completely normal, completely legal. The wrong move is to slice it up. Pay in 4 now, 3 next week, the rest later. That's the road to trouble. The right move is to deposit the full $9,000 in one go and hold onto a proper bill of sale. Your name, their name, the date, the registration, the amount, both signatures. If the cashier asks, give one short sentence. "I sold my car privately. Hand over the paperwork if you have it." That's the end of the conversation. Spotless record. The second situation is a gift from family, which trips people up because of confusion around tax. It shouldn't. Let's say your son gives you £8,000 in cash. In the UK, receiving a gift is not taxable income. You don't declare it. You don't pay income tax on it. It's not treated like earnings. Tax doesn't touch it. The only tax that could touch it is inheritance tax, if the giver passes away within 7 years, dealt with by the estate. So take the $8,000, pay it in as one clean deposit, and ask your son to jot down 2 lines on a bit of paper. His name, your name, the date, amount, and phrase. This is a gift with no expectation of repayment. 2 minutes of writing. The third situation is moving your own money. Perhaps you've lost your spouse and you're consolidating accounts. Perhaps one bank is offering a better rate and you're shifting your savings across. Or you're just tidying up affairs. This is your money. You've already paid tax on every penny of it. You've done nothing wrong at any point. And yet, if you shuffle it across in small pieces, the software doesn't see a careful pensioner. It sees a criminal pattern. The answer is the same. Move it in one clean transfer if you possibly can. Keep the statements from both accounts. Right, quick moment. If this is clicking for you, hit that thumbs up button so YouTube pushes this to more people. There are thousands of owners and families who need this information before they make a mistake. One tap. Let's carry on. The fourth situation is inheritance. Let's say your sister passes away and leaves you £20,000 from her estate. For most families, there's no tax for you to pay. Inheritance tax is dealt with by the estate beforehand. If it arrives as cash, the danger is exactly the same as everywhere else. Spread it out, and the system sees structuring. So you put it in as one deposit, and you keep a copy of the grant of probate or a letter from the executor. The fifth situation is a large, legitimate lump sum arriving from an official source, like a pension or insurance settlement. The money arrives properly in one large amount, straight from a regulated source. That's absolutely fine. Don't panic. The mistake people make is to start moving it around into smaller pots to spread the risk or tidy it up. That shuffling is exactly the movement the software watches for. Leave it alone. The bank already has records. Do you see the thread? In every single one, the safe move and the natural move are opposites. Instinct says, be quiet. But the safe thing is to be loud. Do it all at once. Carry your proof with pride. Transparency is your armor. That feels upside down to a lot of us, but it is the truth, and it might be the most valuable thing you take. Now let's walk through practical realities that have shifted recently. Banks have brought in their own limits on cash, and these limits vary wildly. Some take $20,000 a day. Others have capped accounts at $5,000. Paying through the post office often comes with its own tighter cap, with yearly limits on top of daily ones. The FCA has been leaning on banks to tighten these specifically to make money laundering harder. Make a phone call first. Ask what your cash deposit limit is and what they want to see to prove where it came from. Save an embarrassing trip. From earlier this year, new rules came into force to protect people from debanking, where a bank closes your account. Banks now have to give proper notice and a clear explanation before shutting an account down, with narrow exceptions. This doesn't override tipping off rules, so if there's a live concern, they still can't tell you everything. But it's an improvement. HMRC has a power called a financial institution notice to demand your financial records without needing to ask you. The authorities can see far more of your financial life than you realize. They can do it quietly, so be consistent. You cannot control whether they choose to look. You can absolutely control what they find when they do. When standing at the counter, the cashier will ask you where the money came from. This is normal. It's not personal. The response should be short, honest, and calm. I sold my car. It's a gift. Hand over the paper that backs it up. What you must not do is ramble. Don't launch into your entire life story or mention arguments with family members. The more you say, the more there is for someone to write down. A long explanation reads differently than a calm sentence. Second, never say you didn't want to go over a limit or ask if it will be reported. Those words are radioactive. And if a well-meaning cashier offers to split the deposit up for you, the answer is a polite but firm no. If the worst happens and your account is frozen, do not try to explain yourself on the spot. Don't sign anything. Say one thing, I'd like to take advice before I respond. Then find a solicitor who deals with proceeds of crime. The report is not the crime. The watching is not the crime. The system exists to catch drug money and fraud. The problem is, the algorithm cannot tell the difference between a criminal and a pensioner taking bad advice. It sees behavior. The behavior that makes an innocent person look guilty is breaking money up to avoid attention. So don't. Clean money with clean paperwork moving in plain sight is the most boring thing in the world to watch. Be boring. Start a folder today called Proof of Where My Money Came From. Put a line in your own words in the document. Keep the bank statement showing the money going in. That folder is your entire defense. You'll likely never need it. But if you do, you'll settle the matter in minutes instead of months of misery. There's no age that exempts you. If you know someone about to sell a car or clear out savings, pass this video their way. It saves heartaches. Tell me in the comments if you've paid in large cash recently. I read every comment to help find the next video topic. That's it from me. Look after yourselves, look after your paperwork, and I'll see you in the next one.